Hello guys and welcome to VoloKin project. It's Tony here. Today I'm gonna do a quick camera test of this Smartisan NUT Pro 3. At the front we've got a 20 megapixel shooter. I'm just gonna have to look at the model to let you know which one exactly it is. 20 megapixel Samsung S5K3T1, the same camera as the Xiaomi Mi 8. A little bit older sensor, but it's all about the software guys. So let's see how the stabilization works on this unit. Maximum video resolution 1080p. Alright, let's have a look at a few photos now and then we're gonna move to the back cameras. At the back of the Smartisan NUT Pro 3 we've got a 48 megapixel Sony camera IMX586, essentially the same sensor used in the OnePlus 7 as well as the Xiaomi K20 Pro. I'm shooting in 4K at the moment, 30 FPS, but unfortunately there is no stabilization guys, so when you run you get a results like that. Let's switch to 1080p to see how it goes, but first we're gonna test the autofocus abilities. Very nice and very quick. Let's have a look at the 1080p now. There's an option for 4K 60 FPS, but since there is no stabilization available, there is absolutely no point testing it. However, I am at 30 FPS at the moment with stabilization on guys. So when you run, let's see how the stabilization works. And once again, let's have a look at the autofocus. Really nice. Let's have a look at the 60 FPS now. So that's 60 FPS in 1080p now. It's a little bit windy, but we're gonna test the microphones like that. A quick run over here to test the stabilization. And again, let's have a look at the autofocus. And unfortunately, oh okay, there we go. Autofocus is on point. Let's have a look at the rest of the cameras. The telephoto camera of this phone is 8 megapixels and is OmniVision 8856, usually used in the cheap Chinese smartphones. I'm shooting in 4K at the moment, no stabilization whatsoever, so when you run you get a result like that. Let's switch to 1080p to see what happens. And just on the side note, you cannot switch between the cameras when using video. And this is the same camera in 1080p, the telephoto one. Let's see if we have any sort of stabilization or not guys. Just a quick sprint over here. Okay, and now let's switch to the super wide angle. Alright, so the super wide angle camera is a 13 megapixel unit, Samsung S5K3L6, like some of the cheap Nokia phones. Guys, I don't expect the stabilization to work in 4K simply because there was not such a switch, but anyways, let's give it a try over here. Alright, and let's switch to 1080p now. Okay, and that's 1080p 30 FPS with super wide angle camera with stabilization on. Let's see how it works guys. Just short sprint over here. Okay, and now what about the macro camera? Okay guys, so the image is a little bit blurry now because I'm using the 5 megapixel macro camera Samsung S5K5E9, similar to the some cheap Nokia phones over here, and it doesn't let me use it on 4K, but now I'm filming in 1080p now. So let's see how close actually can you get with this camera guys. Let me show you what you can do. I'm pretty close to that stone over here, as you can see. Let me see if the autofocus works. Okay, the focus works as well. Let's have a look at some photos now. Okay guys, so let's do the conclusion of the camera setup of the Smartisan Nut Pro 3S. By the way, in terms of the design, the visual design of the camera sensors, the green one has a different setup than the white one, but that's just the visual aspect. The hardware is absolutely the same, guys. Now, historically, the Smartisan phones never really had a proper, camera phone, considering that the 2S over here was average and best. Even their flagship model, the R1, was average at best as well. One thing I've gotta give, respect to Smartisan is for publishing officially the hardware sensors model numbers on their official website, as you can see from these screenshots over here. Unlike LG, for example, I couldn't really find any information of the sensors used, and no surprise about that. They used a cheap sensor on the V60 main camera. I even asked them on Twitter and they couldn't really give me this information, guys, which is a little bit suspicious, but there's a reason for that. However, having said that, they really tried hard to improve the camera experience of the Nut Pro 3. And the front-facing camera is a Samsung 20 megapixel unit. The model is S5K3T1, essentially the same camera as the Xiaomi Mi 8. Unfortunately, it doesn't support the stabilization. 1080p is the maximum video resolution. The dynamic range is not very good, and overall I really don't see the details in those 20 megapixels, guys. So overall I would say that I am actually disappointed in the front-facing camera of the Smartisan here. At the back we've got a more interesting setup in the camera, but let me tell you two things. First of all, no 4K stabilization in none of the cameras pretty much, and on the positive side, the audio is very loud and clear in all modes. Now, the main camera of the Smartisan is a 48 megapixel Sony IMX586, essentially the same camera as the OnePlus 7 and the Xiaomi K20 Pro over here, and that's probably my most favorite camera in this phone. It does an absolutely great job in details, in HDR as well. Even the low light performance is quite good. However, the dedicated night mode is actually worse than the auto mode, so they need a little bit of work on the software side. The camera application looks quite alright, by the way. It's a little bit different, but it's very intuitive and easy to use. In terms of stabilization, the 1080p only supports stabilization and it gets a good job. Now let's move on to the super wide angle camera. It's a 13 megapixel unit, Samsung S5K3L6, as seen on some of the cheap Nokia phones, guys. About the video stabilization, unfortunately it doesn't work, not in 4K and not even on 1080p on the super wide angle camera. So yeah, overall I'm not very happy with the details. 13 megapixel is really not enough for a super wide angle camera, guys. What else I can tell you about this camera? Let me see. It's a little bit soft. Yes, overall it's a little bit soft due to the lack of the megapixels pretty much. The third camera that we have over here is an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, OmniVision 8856. Some of the cheap Chinese phones have this telephoto camera, and 8 megapixel telephoto camera compared to the main 48 megapixel camera, it doesn't make any sense, guys. About the stabilization, you've got 1080p stabilization on telephoto camera, but it's really not good. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of useless, this camera. And the last camera that we have on the Smartisan over here is a 5 megapixel macro camera. It's a Samsung S5K5E9, as some of the cheap Nokia's phones have, and actually it does a very good job most of the time, guys. Unfortunately, you don't have a stabilization on this camera, of course, but at least it allows you to take videos with it, because some of the phones, like, let me see, the TCL 10 Pro over here, it doesn't allow you to take any videos with the macro camera. So at least you've got the option to take videos, and you can do that in quite of a close distance with this particular phone, guys. And overall, again, I'm very happy with the overall output of the macro camera over here. So the overall conclusion is front-facing camera not good, main camera excellent pretty much, super wide angle camera not very good, telephoto camera absolutely useless, and the macro camera can be quite good at times. So overall, considering the price of the phone, guys, you can import one, is gonna come to 350 pounds, something like that. That's OnePlus Nord pricing over here. The camera setup on the Nord is not too much different than this one. And to be honest with you, because of the main camera and because of the macro camera, this phone is worth it. But again, don't rely on the selfie camera over here. But that's only one aspect of the phone. Of course, if you're interested in the unboxing and my full review of this phone, links in the description down below. Thank you very much for watching. That was Tony for your visual pleasure. See you later, guys. Adios.